Hello, and welcome back to The Sweet Spot. This week's guest episode is featuring Steph Blake. And I found her on Instagram, and I just really loved her stuff, basically, following her. And I'm going to give you my one takeaway, is actually the title of this podcast, and it's Focus on One Thing for a Year. I think it's very hard for us as business owners to do that, especially when we go through times where we're not seeing as many leads and we want to just try and do something different, or maybe something comes across our desk that really just like, maybe we should try that, maybe we should try that. And I think the focusing on one thing for a year is a great challenge. So there's lots of great stuff in here, but that was my biggest takeaway from this. And I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I had fun talking with her. Enjoy. Welcome to the Small Business Sweet Spot. I'm your host, Barb Davids, website marketing consultant and SEO strategist. In today's bonus episode, I'm chatting with a fellow business owner to bring out their best tips, tactics, and tangible strategies for helping you grow in business and life. Thanks so much, Steph, for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. So we met on Instagram. I'd seen you around with some different podcasts and people sharing yours and you sharing theirs. And I just found it so interesting that you have a podcast and a small business suite. I don't know the exact name. I'm sure we'll definitely talk about it. But in terms of your business, you have it's an actual tangible thing almost, even though you do have the background of being service-based. So maybe I'll just start there and you can talk a little bit about the software that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a membership. First of all, it's called the Simple Business School, and that is where I support people with simplifying their business. So that's for service providers, online business owners. And then the other piece that you're talking about is the Simple Business Suite. So that is an all-in-one software that simplifies the tech and business, because I found a lot of people, especially people who are not familiar with tech or who really enjoy setting up the tech, they get really like frustrated and overwhelmed when they're trying to piece all of these different tools together. And that was something that I enjoyed, because I'm a really big nerd. So like, oh, it's fun to try to figure out this puzzle. And then it wasn't fun anymore when I was spending thousands of dollars on different platforms. So that's what the suite does. It really simplifies all of the tech to keep it in one spot.
And when you say tech, can you elaborate on like the different parts of business that is?
Absolutely. So website, email marketing, if you create courses or memberships, if you have a community, also I know there's a lot of service providers. So there's an entire CRM built in, calendar, contracts, proposals, payment collection, automations, workflows, like literally everything that you need is in one place for you.
That is a very crowded, I feel like, marketplace, especially these days, right? With AI and everybody building all the tools and things. So it's very fantastic that you have that. How did you get over the idea, or maybe you didn't even have this idea, maybe I'm making it up, but like thinking that this stuff is already out there. So how do you get over the fact that there's other tools that do the same thing? Because I think of this like other service providers, like photographers have to go through this a lot, and other service-based people, they have a lot of people in their industry. So how do you get over that to say, I'm going to keep going with this because I know it's a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that I have faced numerous times throughout my career. When I was a service provider, I did virtual assistant work for a really long time, turned that into an agency. And how many VAs are there out there? Thousands, right?
Yeah,
Tens of
yeah,
thousands.
yeah.
So that was really when I first had to learn this. And then honestly, since I learned this the first time, it's just kind of transferred over. And that is knowing that it doesn't matter what's out there, the way that I create it and the way that I present it is unique to me. So although there are other tools out there, they're not getting me in the mix. They're getting, I don't know, whoever's running that tool, right? So they don't get access to me, my brain, my strategies, my unique way of doing things.
Yeah. And how do you market your business?
Yeah. So if you couldn't tell, I'm all about simplicity, right? So everything in my business, everything I sell is all about simplicity. So the Simple Business School, that's my membership where I do coaching and whatnot to support people. But then the Simple Business Suite, again, is all about simplicity. So that is, again, the biggest thing that I noticed people needed was simple strategies and simple systems, right? So that is really the big thing that differentiates me and the service, not the services, the products that I offer to the
Mhm.
world, is really focusing in on that, but not just marketing it, actually living it. Because people market in one way, but behind the scenes, things are a really big mess. So I
Yeah.
think once I start talking to people and they realize, oh, she's actually talking the talk and living her truth, that's really a big thing that sets me apart as well.
Yeah. And how did you decide like what channels to promote or talk about your services and your solutions?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for almost 9 years at this point. So I have built up a good size email list. I mean, it goes through phases, right? We have to subscribe or unsubscribe people, clean up our lists. But that is where the majority of my marketing happens is through email. And then also through collaboration efforts like this. So I love to connect with other entrepreneurs. I love speaking. So whether that's on a podcast or summit or in-person speaking events, I love to do all of that. And I truly find that when you can get in front of other audiences, that is the fastest way to grow your business because you're not starting from scratch. And
Mm.
then I'll also do social media here and there. Currently, at this time, right now, I haven't done as much. It's just kind of set and forget, which is not a good strategy, but that's my strategy that
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
using right now.
yeah. I think there's a lot of that going on out there right now, so
Yeah.
that's okay. So in terms of getting in front of other people's audiences, I have heard that lately from a couple different people. Which one is like there's getting on other podcasts, there's speaking. What else is there, or is that it?
I mean, there's unlimited numbers of ways to get in front of audiences. It's whenever people ask me about that, I always say that you have to do what makes sense for you. So when I first started doing this, I have a background in PR. So that's what I did in my corporate life. I know the power of getting in front of other people. So when I first started doing this, I started really slowly with bundles. So for those who aren't familiar with that, a bundle is essentially a collection of resources that you can sign up for free or purchase. And it's getting in front of hundreds of thousands of people, right? So that is what I first started doing. But I realized that for me, my goals, my big vision, what worked best for me is speaking. So when I can speak on a podcast or a summit, I can convert people much more quickly. Plus, it's something that I genuinely enjoy doing. I love to talk, if you can't tell, and I love to just meet other people, learn about them, and have conversations. So that is what works best for me. But again, there's some trial and error. It's more difficult in a sense to talk because first of all, you have to actually set aside time to do it versus something like a bundle where it's kind of like you promote it and then the people come in, right? So it's really dependent on the strategies that you want to use. And then of course, there's also in person, right? So there's in-person events that you can do, networking, things like that. There's joint ventures, there's partnerships, there's sponsorships. So there's so many different ways that you can get in front of different audiences, but you really just have to find what works best for you. And for me right now, it's a lot of partnerships and speaking. That's what I'm leaning into.
Okay. Is there anything that we could ask ourselves to know like what that would be, or how do you suggest somebody start figuring that out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think most people know that if they like to talk, they know they like to talk, right? Versus like, I know that I like to talk. So that is just what I enjoy doing. So that would be a very easy way to start. Do you enjoy speaking about the thing that you are doing? Yes or no? If
Mhm.
yes, great. Go down that route. There's so many different ways to do that. Like I said, podcasts, summits, in-person events. There's a variety of those, right? And if it's not something that you want to do, that's also okay. There are other ways that you can get in front of audiences without necessarily talking, doing interviews like this, right? So I mentioned bundles before, right? That's a really great way to get started. And I host many of these throughout the year just as a way for other people to grow their lists more organically. So that doesn't require using ads, right?
Mhm.
There's also like joint venture opportunities, right? So you can partner with other people. Maybe you are promoting, I don't know, a membership or something that they have, right? And then you'll get affiliate commissions on the back end of that, but you are still getting in front of other audiences, right? There's so many different ways, but I
Yeah.
think that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That helps definitely. So, my next question I wanted to ask you about is because you do get in front of so many people and you're helping them simplify their businesses. So, I think, what do you feel like might be some of the biggest obstacles that you've seen business owners trying to hurdle over as they come into your area?
Yeah, thinking that they cannot simplify their business.
Mm.
Truly. A lot of people say that, well, I can't only sell one thing. I can't simplify my business. That won't work for me. And the truth is that Yes, it can. Because if we look at any of the big names out there, like Amazon, what did they start selling? Books. That's all they sold for years and years and years, right? Chipotle got started with burritos only. Nike only sold running shoes in the beginning. And now they're these massive corporations. So that's really the biggest thing I hear people say is I don't want to simplify things by selling one thing. I'm going to get bored. I'm multi-passionate, right? Well, I'm multi-passionate. I'm good at a lot of things and I have ADHD. So if I can simplify things in my business, then anybody can, truly. It's really just committing to it and looking at the bigger picture,
Mm.
right? And really viewing ourselves as business owners instead of side hustlers, frankly.
Mm-hmm. That's a good. Why do you think people can't hone in on one thing?
Well, most people are distracted, honestly,
Mm.
because there's so many different things coming at us all of the time when we're scrolling on social media, when we're in our email inbox, everybody is trying to sell us something else
Mm.
as the big thing that will help them reach their goals, right? So that's really the first piece is we're just constantly distracted. But then the second piece is that a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid of not reaching their goals quickly enough in the time that they think that they should be reaching their goals.
Mm.
So if they are, let's say they're not making enough money, right? They're not making the money that they want. So right now they're going to start selling one thing, but then guess what? That thing isn't selling. So they're 2 weeks later going to start creating something new instead of actually going back and giving that thing the time it needs to sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be really strategic with how they're selling the thing and actually sell it all together. That's the other thing. People aren't selling, right? They're just creating these things and hoping people magically buy them when that
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Yeah. Is there like a time frame that you tell people to stick with, like once you talk them into doing just the one thing, maybe not talk it into, that's a wrong phrase, but once you help them hone in on the one thing, is there like a time frame that you generally give them to say, hey, at least wait this long?
So bare minimum 90 days, but
Okay.
like bare minimum. And then I say 60 days, or I'm sorry, 6 months.
Okay.
6 months is really where we should start because on average, it takes 90 days for you to market something.
Mm.
So that's why I say like minimum 6 months, ideally 1 year though. So
Okay.
if you can stick with something for 1 year, that's best. If you are just like, if thinking about 1 year is just freaking you out and you can't even imagine that, start with 6 months.
Okay.
Start with 6 months because, like I said, when you're marketing, when you're creating something new, when you're building up your audience, it's going to take a minimum of 90 days for people to, one, realize that you're selling this thing because, again, we're all distracted, right? So they're going to need constant reminders. And then two, you also have to warm people up. So first you have to let them know that you're actually selling this thing, and then you have to warm them up to want to buy it from you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why I said bare minimum 90 days because that's the amount of time people know to even need to know that you exist, right? And then of course as your business grows, as you grow, as you become more well known, then obviously those times decrease, right? And then we could eventually add other offers on and whatnot. But especially for those who are just like in the beginning stages, or for those who are just incredibly overwhelmed, even if you've been doing this for a little while, that's what
Yeah.
I would recommend. Just
Okay.
focus on one thing for a year.
Okay. And I'm interested in the software side and how you got into deciding to create something like that. I can't even imagine where someone would even start to figure out how that works. So what were some of the things that you were thinking about when you thought, oh, I need to build this? Like how?
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, I was spending over $1,000 a month on different tools.
Mm.
And that was really the catalyst for me. Like my email marketing tool alone was over $500 a month. And I was like,
Wow.
this
That's
is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And I didn't even realize it because like I said, I'm really nerdy and I'm techie and I love to play with different tools. It's just like very fun. And eventually I realized I had signed up for all of these different tools. Some of them I wasn't even using and paying for. But then like right, who hasn't done that? You know?
That's so crazy.
Or I've gone, for example, on like AppSumo and bought lifetime deals there, and I
Right.
never used
Yeah.
those. So it was realizing that I just had like this graveyard of tools that either I was not using, or if I was using them, they were just way too expensive and it just didn't make sense. So that was when I realized, okay, it's really time to simplify this. It's time to listen to myself, time to listen to my own advice and really focus on simplifying the tech for myself. And then once I did that, once I started to set things up, once I started to essentially create it for myself, that's what I did. I solved my own problem,
Yeah.
right? I solved my own problem. And then I started telling people about it. Just off the cuff. I would have a coaching call with someone and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've been working on this. We were just chatting about what we were doing. They're like, wait, I need that. Like, what? What is this? I need that. So then the word just started to spread. And then I just like announced it to my email list a couple of times. And I just had people coming in left and right, like, oh my gosh, I need this. I need to simplify my software. Like either they were spending too much, their tools were breaking. That's another big thing. It's like you're trying to connect all of these different tools together,
Yeah.
right? And they're just breaking because they're not supposed to be connected in that way, instead of just keeping it really simple and in one place.
Yeah. So do you have an app as well as the online solution?
Yep. So we have online and we have the app. I always recommend, especially for online entrepreneurs. I don't know about you, but like I just love to use the online user face. It's just such a better experience.
Yeah. Some more
Most of the
real
time,
estate
because
to look at.
exactly. So yeah, we have both, but I always recommend when people use it to use our interface on the
Okay.
website.
And so did you just end up like hiring out for people and say, okay, I need a developer to do this and start finding somebody and then say, hey, here's what I want, build it and let me see how it comes out?
Yeah, so we actually started with a foundation from another company.
Okay.
So we white labeled another company, but from there, I custom coded everything.
Okay.
So it has the foundational tools in there because truthfully, if I were to start this from scratch, it would have been anywhere between $3 and $10 million. I
Mm,
got quotes on it and I was like, no, that's not
yeah.
happening.
That
First of all, I don't
500 is
have,
looking better and better.
it's like I'll just spend $1,000 a month.
Right.
So yeah, that was when I realized like why try to reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah.
So I utilized a platform that has already been running very successfully for many years. But then, like I said, I customized it for myself. And then I realized, oh, wait, I can customize this for each person. So every person who signs up, they have a completely customized account as well.
Mhm.
So, for example, like not everybody will need all of the different resources in their account. So if they, for like, let's say they are a service provider and they don't need a membership. So they won't even see the membership in their account. Now,
Okay.
5 years from now, if they choose, hey, I want to start a membership, or if they decide they want to start a membership, then guess what? We can add that membership piece in there. But really, again, the whole thing is the whole purpose is to simplify the software so people can stay really focused,
Mhm.
right? Because the last thing that we want to do is waste all of our time and energy creating and like playing around with tools and features in our account that aren't even relevant to our business.
What is something that if somebody's sitting here thinking, yes, I do need to simplify my business, what are some things that we might not be aware of that is an indicator that we need to look at the solution?
I'm not sure I understand. Can you
So
rephrase
I'm
that?
sitting here thinking I need to simplify my business, but is it that like if how many tools is too many tools? Maybe that's a different question. Like to say,
It,
okay, maybe I need to take a look at this one solution instead.
yeah, I mean, it depends on your business, honestly. So if you have a very, very simple business, so let's take a service provider, for example, right? Service provider, they have essentially a really simple business. They don't need a lot of things. They usually need a website, they need a CRM, like somewhere for contracts, proposals, a calendar to book calls with their clients and somewhere to collect payments, right? And that's really all that somebody would need. You really don't need much more than that.
Mhm.
So in that case, you wouldn't need like an all-in-one software is great, right? Because you wouldn't need more than a handful of things versus someone who has maybe they've been in business for 10 plus years, they have hundreds of thousands of people in their world. They may need a few other tools to kind of keep things moving in the background, right? Like they may need, well, yeah, like the suite could work for that as well. But for example, they probably need like Slack, right? To
Mm,
communicate with their team. They
right.
probably need, well, they definitely need, everybody needs a project management tool, right? So like ClickUp is a great example of that.
Mhm.
They may also need, oh, I don't know. There's so many different tools out there.
Right.
But those are a couple of examples. Like Slack is one. They may want to use Airtable for some things, right? So that's another example. So it's really understanding where you are right now, what stage of business that you're in, what the goals are that you want for your business, and then using the tools and only the necessary tools to help you reach that goal, because it's, again, very easy to get distracted
Yeah.
by all of the different options.
That's definitely right. I can feel that with the whole I really resonated with the AppSumo thing and like the tools and yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny, especially when you want to try them out for yourself because sometimes it's also for clients. And so like you want to see if there's just a if there is a better way or if there's a smoother solution or whatnot. So I
Yeah,
get that.
absolutely.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. What would you say is one takeaway that you hope somebody walks away with it from this episode with?
Simple is best. That's my biggest thing. And also, along the same lines of that, is that simplicity doesn't have to be overwhelming, because that's another thing that I hear people say is they think, okay, well, my business can't be simple, right? And then they kind of overthink, which is
Mm,
counterintuitive, right? But they overthink about how their business is and how they need it to be more complicated than it really needs to be. And again, a lot of this is fear-based,
mhm,
thinking that we need to create a bunch of different offers, that we need to have a bunch of different tools. But truly, at the end of the day, running a business is very simple. You need a way for people to pay you, right? And you need to solve a problem for
mhm,
people. That's it. So, like, as a coach, for example, if you have calls like this, like on Zoom, right? You have
mhm.
Zoom, you could use Stripe. Somebody can pay you, and you need a contract, of course. And that's really all you need. You don't need anything other than that.
Yep.
So, that's really another thing, is business does not have to be complicated. A lot of people are just overcomplicating it in their own minds.
Yeah. This was great stuff. I appreciate you sharing all of this information. And if somebody wants to reach out and learn more about your solutions, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is the Blake Collective. So that has everything that you need there. But if you wanted to learn more about the Simple Business Suite, which is the software that we were talking about, you can go to Simple Biz with a Z, simplebizsuite.com. And then my membership is Simple Biz, also with a Z, school.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put all of the links in the show notes. And that wraps up this episode. Stay tuned for more episodes to help your business thrive online. We'll see you in the next sweet spot. Cheers. For reference, I'd like to share Steph's bio for you now. Steph Blake is a business coach and the CEO of the Simple Business School and Simple Business Suite. With nearly 2 decades of experience, she's on a mission to help online entrepreneurs simplify their businesses so they can work less, earn more, and skip the tech headaches. When she's not diving into systems and business strategy, you'll find her wrangling 2 boys navigating ADHD-fueled hyperfixations and binging old Netflix shows. And that's a wrap on another guest expert episode of the Small Business Sweet Spot. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you love the show. You can find all the links to connect with me, Barb Davids, and our guest in the show notes. If you loved the episode, share it with a friend who's ready to thrive in their business. I'll see you in the sweet spot.